In May 2020, my life began to change. This is my story. Before my awakening, I spent much of my time sat here playing Fortnite or FIFA, biting pillows and crying whenever I came second in Battle Royale or lost a game of Ultimate Team. And sure, I had fun, but it was the kind of fun where your heart rate is increasing and you're sweating, and then as soon as the PlayStation turns off, your enjoyment quickly fades. So is that really fun? Don't get me wrong, I wasn't completely unhappy in my life. I just wasn't fulfilled. I just didn't have direction, and I wasn't on a path of growth. And I was the kind of guy that desperately wanted to climb up the school social hierarchy by making fun of people around him and making jokes about
willies and football banter.
And there's a time and a place for all of that. But really, those kind of endeavours in life, that kind of approach to things is really unfulfilling, and that's what I found. But then Boris came up and did his thing of,
"Ooh, scary virus, stay in your home."
And at first, I was mad. It had taken away my entire life. But looking back now, I realised that that is exactly what I needed. Because it gave me a chance to do a lot of thinking. I mean, a lot of thinking. I filled journal after journal, page after page of just thoughts about life. And I came to a series of realizations that completely changed the texture of my existence. And I'll attempt to synthesize them down into one single sentence. The world is so messed up. There's so much pain and suffering and famine and injustice and war and death. But I can't control any of that. But what I can control is me. And it's my responsibility to bring some good into the world through the things that I do and the life that I lead. And with that thought in my mind, I was never the same again. I'd like to say that it was all sunshine and rainbows, but it really wasn't. It took a lot of discomfort to become the person I wanted to be. There was anxiety of letting go of the ways I used to act and think. There was anger for what I realised about the world, and I vividly remember going for an evening walk during the first lockdown with my mum, and it was like a dark evening, clear sky, and I just sort of looked up at the stars and burst into tears, just started crying my eyes out. I'm not even sure why, but I think all of that suffering was kind of like the rite of passage to become a better person. There's a quote that says, "Man cannot remake himself without suffering, because he is both the marble and the sculptor." And as time went by, I began to live my life differently, changed my actions and changed what I let myself consume. I started good habits like weightlifting, meditation, journaling, cold exposure, going out in nature and optimizing sleep. I quit social media, started eating clean. I even went vegan for 18 months. I stopped watching TV and reduced my exposure to negative people and negative information like the news. And for the most part, I began to feel better. I was happier, more peaceful, and less stressed most of the time. And this might sound like an extreme lifestyle, because it was, and I don't live like that now, as I'll get into later. But it was a necessary detox for me to change into the person I am today. As the months went by, I continued my new way of life like a hermit, not seeing many people and just focusing on my habits. I was lonely, I was anxious, and to be honest, I wasn't sure whether it was the right path. Then year 11 came along, and a return to the school environment, suffocated by COVID restrictions and nobody wanting to be there. I hated year 11. My mental health went down the toilet, and my life, quite frankly, was shit. I felt like I couldn't relate to anyone, and I didn't know how to get across how I changed. So I ended up either isolating myself and not wanting to socialize, or sinking back into my old negative ways of thinking and acting. The first 8 weeks of year 11 went by and my mental health continued to decline. And then I decided, screw it, I can't deal with this, and I made the decision to work from home. It was a big decision because I was choosing between what's normal and expected, or choosing to carve my own path, and yes, socially isolate myself and exit an environment I'm used to, but give myself more time to focus on growth and focus on who I'd like to become. Obviously at the time I didn't know what I was really doing, I just didn't want to feel as bad as I was, and this seemed the best decision to do just that. But then Boris came along again and said,
"Ooh, we haven't been able to stop the scary virus, so can you stay in your homes again?"
And the absolute carnage of online lessons ensued, with teachers hating their job even more by having to do lessons through Zoom and stuff. The politics of whether you have your camera on or your camera off, and that wave of anxiety as a teacher asks you a question and you have to answer through your laptop. Not ideal. Suck your mum. I really started trying hard in everything I did in life, especially schoolwork at this time, because work was my distraction. Work gave me satisfaction. Work gave me a bit of hope for a good future. I was still rather lonely. I had one friend who I spoke to often that understood my new mindset to life, and if I didn't have him, I know I would have fallen into a very deep depression. I still had a military routine with 6 a.m. rises, cold showers, meditation, lifting weights, all of that stuff, right? But what I realize now is it was those things that throughout the whole experience kept me f***ing sane. I did my final exams and avoided every single social interaction that I could with people in my year because I was scared of human beings. I avoided prom and leavers celebrations. In fact, I vividly remember a day. It was the final day, the final exam day, and I was sat waiting to be picked up by my mother in the car. And I remember hearing like distant voices of everyone like signing their uniform on the field, right? And there was a part of me in so much mental, emotional pain for not being involved in that situation. But there was another side of me that was crippled by so much social anxiety that I couldn't get myself to do that. And it's horrible that when there's two sides to yourself. One side of you is desperate to go out there and do loads of good things in life, put yourself out there, try and increase your confidence, talk to people, get shit done, take opportunities. And there's another side that is crippled by social anxiety and that doesn't feel good enough and doesn't feel worthy and feels like it's going to go wrong. And it's this negative side that inhibits the positive side from doing what it was supposed to do. And then began the summer of 2021. A long summer, a boring summer, a summer where I felt like I was constantly waiting for something to happen in my life until eventually it did. I didn't have a lot to do throughout this summer, but still had a lot of thoughts in my head. So I wrote 30,000 words of a shitty book that I discovered a couple of weeks ago and had forgotten I'd even written. Seriously, Joel, what the f***? At the beginning of the summer, I had my sixth form induction day for school, and it was the first time I had seen people from my school environment in about 18 months, if you don't count the tragic year 11 weeks, right? And therefore, my social anxiety was at a peak. But I got through it, and the difference between this time and year 11 is that I really felt like I could be myself. And therefore, the start of the new school year in September 2021 felt like a fresh start for me, and I really hoped that it could be. I was still making progress in developing myself. I absolutely smashed my GCSEs, which was a good confidence boost. I began training properly at the gym and returned to basketball, which all helped my mental health considerably. I may not have seemed it on the outside, but returning to school in year 12 made me a wreck mentally. However, after a few weeks, I managed to get into the swing of things. And what I realized is that honestly, people didn't give a shit that I'd left. They just carry on like nothing had happened. In psychology, there is a concept known as the spotlight effect, which says that throughout our life, we feel like there is constantly a spotlight on us and the focus is on the things that we do. However, the truth is that every single person in society, everyone that you see out and about, thinks that the spotlight is on them. They are focusing on their spotlight. In short, no one really cares about you. And that can actually be really freeing and reduce a lot of anxiety. And it was this last 12 months of my life where the quality absolutely skyrocketed. Obviously, it wasn't all really fun in school. Bad days came and went, that's just how it goes. But I was making serious progress. My grades were insane. I gradually started putting on muscle mass. I was playing the best I ever have on the basketball court, and I was feeling more socially confident as every month went by. What reduced my social anxiety the most was playing a main role in the school production that's held each December. And I'm so grateful to my past self for auditioning for that show despite his fears. This made me realize that I can overcome my fears and my nerves, and that I'm actually a liked dude in the community and I don't have to worry all the time about what people are thinking. And then as momentum really started to kick in, and I became the happiest, healthiest, most driven, most confident version of myself I had ever been, even before my awakening. I realized that I wanted to share my experience with other people and with the world. And on January 1st, 2022, I made a decision. I told myself that I was going to start a YouTube channel, and for at least the whole of 2022, I had to make videos on there, sharing, documenting my experience of personal development through life and trying to help people come to the great realizations that I have. Over this summer, I've done some real thinking, come up with some real creative and valuable ideas that I want to put into the channel going forward, and I can't wait to get them out there to the world. So that's my story. But what is yours? If you stayed to this point in my video, my message clearly resonates, meaning that there is potential dormant in you to have an unbelievably good life. It's going to take effort, hard work, and and suffering. It won't be easy, but it's the most worthwhile thing you'll do. So what do you actually want from life? I'm just a guy on the internet waffling. You know how you want your life to be. So what habits do you need to get there? What things do you have to stop and start doing? What kind of mindset do you have to cultivate? How are you going to leave this video and start creating your own story? Let this message be your own psychological awakening, and together we can change this world for the better.
Joel Clifton, yeah, please sub and comment and like. But on a serious note, the content is very good. We, as well as him, obviously would appreciate your subscription to him.